In today's complex business environment, leaders need not only to be prepared for the worst, but also to build their resilience. At The Human Factor, Corporate Integrity Matters' Sonja Stirnimann invites top executives, board members, and industry experts to reflect and talk about the realities of corporate integrity, risk, and ethical leadership. As an international governance authority, independent director, and entrepreneur, she understands the challenges leaders face. Integrity and ethical leadership are not just principles. They build resilience, enhance reputation, and create strategic competitive advantage for organizations and for individuals.
Today, I'm honored to welcome my colleague Maya Bundt. She chairs the steering committee for the implementation of the national cyber strategy in Switzerland and supports a number of national and international initiatives in the space of cyber and digital risks. She also serves as chair of the Cyber Resilience chapter of the Swiss Risk Association in Switzerland. And she is the former cyber practice leader of Swiss Re, one of the global players of reinsurance. In short, Maya is a professional board member and cybersecurity enthusiast. And today, as promised, we are now digging deeper with this specific session covering the first global cyber board reporting in a mini-series of 3 episodes. We will talk about the following 3 parts: the research process, the results, and the framework. We will clearly highlight our human factor influencing the decisions. Ultimately, we, the board, C-level, and executives, have a massive influence on such analysis as well as on behavior within organizations and processes. So thank you very much, Maya, for being here again and now taking up the next point, the results. For all the ones who did not yet listen to our episode before, I promised in our last episode that we are now digging deeper with a specific session covering the first global cyber board reporting. We will take up the following 3 parts: the research process, that's what we already had; the results, that's what we are doing right now; and also the framework. So I'm looking forward now to the results because, as discussed in the former episode, it's a very nice process you had during the research. And you also said your interview guests already learned by answering the questions. Now we are interested in the results you have after this kind of really extensive work over the last year.
Well, thank you so much, Sonja, for having me on again. I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, the results of our research. So what we did is we kind of distinguished the results into 2 broad areas. One was on board level governance, and the other area was the content of the cybersecurity board reporting. And I think with both, we had really interesting results coming up. And we also always try to derive some common and good practices out of what we saw. So and also then obviously we're thinking about a bit further, what else could be done. Some of the results, as we promised last time, maybe I start with board level governance. So one of the results, and also for me, honestly, a surprise, was that not all boards discuss cybersecurity in the full board.
Really?
Yeah.
Still not. We have now
Not all of them.
2025.
Yeah, we have some boards that completely give that topic to the committee, but not all boards, full boards discuss it. So, but that also means not all board members get into contact with cybersecurity topics. And for me, that is a bit surprising because we have cyber as the one top risk in many of the reports, like the Allianz Risk Barometer comes out each and every year. For years in a row by now, cybersecurity risks are the first one. And the second one is always business interruption. And for everybody who kind of can bring that together, business interruption very often is also caused by a cybersecurity event, right? So.
And of course, we have all these dependencies. And when you say that right now, I think it's also, for me, it's a strategic topic we need to discuss because cyber also goes along with digitalization. And if we are not talking about that as a full board, I think the board is responsible for all the strategic topics. Therefore, it is a must to have it on the agenda. So this result is really also for me super surprising. And then my next question would be, to which committee does it go? Does it go to a specific IT committee, which I do not expect? Maybe it goes to the risk committee. Is that the right place?
I can
Does it
answer
go
that
to? Yeah,
question.
great.
Okay. I have two things to that to say. So, one point that I would like to pick up is the strategic context. I come to that in a minute, but I answer your direct question first, is to which, in which committee is cybersecurity discussed? So in our study, in 83% of the times, it either goes to the audit committee or to the risk committee. Sometimes it's a combined committee. So the audit and or risk committee is by far the point where cybersecurity is being discussed. It is very, very seldom still that boards have a technology committee or technology and cyber. To me, honestly, is a bit surprising because in my view, no business nowadays works technology free. And the technology, digitalization, with it all its risks, right? With its all the data that we have, underpins every single thing that we do, underpins every process, underpins every product that we have, underpins how people work together. So without that, there is no operations, right? And thus, for me, it is honestly still a bit surprising, but not surprising because I don't see it in practice that often, that we don't have a specific committee on this. And it's not only a risk topic, right? As you say, it's also a strategic topic. And I make an example, right? If you take a strategic decision, maybe you want to buy another company, or you want to bring out a new product line that has potentially which many products, even, everyday products that you wouldn't have thought so 10 years ago, have a digital component in it, right? It has an impact on your risk profile. It has an impact on how you need to operate, also to need to keep your customers safe and secure, right? And the other way around as well, cybersecurity and basically the trust that you can create with your customers, with your suppliers, within your organization itself, right? That has an impact of what you can actually do, right? So I think this is a huge and big topic, and I think this topic, and this is why I'm so happy that you mentioned it, the topic of the strategic relevance of cybersecurity is still woefully under discussed.
For me, and I think we could also discuss about which committee should do what, also in another session, and also do we need to have a tech committee or not, but that's exactly the reason why I say cybersecurity needs to be at the top. So it means it needs to be discussed within the full board. Of course, you can also prepare that in a risk committee, for example, but the full board needs to be aware and need to ask the questions, because sometimes you have people in committees, maybe they have some kind of experience, maybe not, maybe you have that person with the most knowledge in that environment not in the committee discussing
Absolutely.
it could be because sometimes you just have when you look at the skill matrix, or maybe you don't even know that that person has that skill.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore I think it's very important that we have it on top, on the full board level, and not only in one of the committees.
I think it's important to have it in a committee, because in a committee you have more time to discuss. You can dive deeper into the topics. You can discuss things that you do not have the time, honestly,
Absolutely.
on board level. But there is no reason for having good and honest discussions on committee level. There's no reason to not have discussions on the board. I think one last point or result out of our research on the board level governance was the length of discussions, right? And if we're looking at the full board again, is most discussions, if they have discussions, they last for about 15 minutes.
At how many?
15 minutes is not long.
And how often a year? Do they do that once a year?
Here that is very dependent. Actually, this is one of the few things that is really dependent on the jurisdiction. In Australia, for example, they have them quarterly. In Switzerland, quarterly is not the norm. is once a year or twice a year. But that really depends on where it is. Australia has been kind of beefing up the scrutiny also of regulators, etc., on cybersecurity. So boards really, they try to do the right thing and have that more often on the agenda. Yeah. But coming back to the length, that is interesting. So 15 minutes is, I mean, at least you can have a presentation, maybe ask 1 or 2 questions. Then the second most often answer was about 30 minutes. That's about a quarter. But then with about a fifth, almost 20% of discussions on the board level are 5 minutes. And 5 minutes is not a discussion, right? That is mostly maybe the chair of the audit committee kind of relating what was discussed in the audit committee. So I think this, in my view, is something that honestly I would love to explore a little bit more.
Because scary. It's somehow scary. If the organizations, also C-level and all the employees realize that the board is not spending then 15 minutes on that topic, how could they feel
well, the thing is
protected?
Honestly, there are so many things that the board needs to deal with.
I know.
There has to be a priority, and you need to and obviously I'm a bit biased. Maybe I'm a lot biased. I think this topic should in general
both, maybe,
receive more time. But I can understand boards needing to prioritize and allocating, the brunt of the work to committees, etc. But you still, as a board member, you still have an obligation, right? And you still need to be able to fulfill that obligation. I think here is where our research then comes in, and actually, and again, maybe I make a little plug in here for the third part when we're talking about the framework. It's important that you then understand what do we actually need as a board from management, and from management, how can we actually transport that to the board in the most efficient way as well.
And maybe, I think also the results you now said about the time allocated, it's a wake-up call, because I come from a different perspective and saying, if I think or believe that it is a strategic topic, I would expect that we spend more time on it. You know what I mean? It's not, maybe also when people answer to your questions or the questions to or to your colleagues, they had something different in mind. But for me, as expecting that cybersecurity is a strategic topic we need to discuss. Also for strategic topics, we need to have more time. And that's the reason why I would expect, knowing about all the priorities we have and how we have to set it. But I think with that perspective, it would need more time to go into all the details. But you said right now, I assume that it's also meant or also including the time spent in the committees, not only on board level. So it means the overall time is about roughly this 15
Committees
minutes.
Spend usually a little bit more time. Yeah.
Okay, but that's not what you also because for the next. It would be interesting also now when you have, because you said in the former episode that you are going to have an additional report and research, and you are also going to expand that. So it would be super helpful, I think, also for us as board members to understand a little bit more, where is it allocated? Is it strategic or not? What kind of committee? How much time do we spend? Is it? This would be nice
interesting,
if you
and
could
we
take
have
it up.
already some answers. We have already some answers in that. And you see that in our report, because we were also discussing and not about, the overall kind of strategy of the company, but at least the cybersecurity strategy. And you see that also in the reports that we analyzed, because we were able, as we discussed in the last episode, we also got real reports to analyze, and we saw that people do discuss, for example, cybersecurity strategy, and that always needs to support the business strategy, in my view, right? There should be no cybersecurity strategy that is not linked to the business strategy.
And super interesting. And for all the other ones who did not yet listen to our first episode about it, so the report is 100 pages. So we only have a few minutes to go into all the highlights. But whoever is interested, we are going to put the link into the show notes, so everybody could also access that kind of information if they would like to have the full report. So I'm looking forward to the next part, going away from the governance a little bit and go to the content of how should I say, a state-of-the-art cybersecurity board reporting.
So again, I will start with a surprise that we had while we were, and maybe it's not a surprise, because if I would have thought about it, I could have probably understood that already. But most of the information that gets to the board is highly aggregated. So it's on the highest aggregation level. It even goes so far, if you usually look at the risk matrix, right, you have usually one cyber bubble, one cyber dot. That's cyber risk. Nobody can understand anything from it, right? You have no idea what that means. It's one bubble. It's usually on the top right-hand corner in the dark orange or red area. Maybe it's then mitigated down to orange, but it's one bubble. It doesn't have a meaning. Board members, myself included, I consider myself a cyber expert. I cannot make sense of it if it's that just one bubble. So but also other information is highly aggregated, right? If you have financial reporting, you have your business units. You for example, you report by business units or by countries. You have country level. Cybersecurity most of the time is just one number or one whatever. So it gets so highly aggregated that you actually cannot see the underlying risks and the underlying performance, etc., etc. And I think that is in some parts. I mean, if you have a very, very homogeneous business, everything is the same. Every country is the same. Every business unit is the same. Every setup is the same. Every operating model is the same. The technology is the same. No problem in highly aggregating, but nobody has that, right?
Do you know what? It could be even better if you have cyber risks under op risks, and you only have this op risk bubble, which also happens.
Oh, yeah, well,
Then you have,
thank you.
and that's
Yeah,
also,
yeah,
I think
you
it's
make
quite
my
good.
point even
Exactly.
better than
So,
I make it
and
myself.
I saw that lastly in one of a presentation I just saw from. I said, okay, it's public information, and everybody could look that up. And I said, okay, it can't be, because op risk is so much more. Oh, how should I say? You can't understand what kind of op risk an organization has if you just have one bubble. And knowing that also cybersecurity are so different areas we should have a look at and also mitigate in a different way, I think it's not enough, especially not for board members. It's okay for external public publication, but not for a board.
Yeah, yeah. So that is one of the things. And another kind of surprising but not surprising outcome was we kind of plotted the content, the topics really. We went through all the board reports that we got, because there we could really see what is being discussed, right? Is in and we kind of ticked all the content, what what are they talking about? And we kind of slotted that into context, risk, cyber governance, strategy, status, and outlook. And what came out is kind of a super beautiful, powerful bubble. It's a cloud of dots, because no report is the same as the other. They are all different. It's diversity at its best, right? And that might be the right thing, but it also might not be. So it's what it says to me is also very difficult for board members to. So many board members sit on several boards, right? You cannot compare one to the other at all. And that is true because of some, underlying, different industry, maybe different setup, different technology, etc. But even the topics that you're talking about are completely different. So it's very difficult to compare. It's sometimes difficult to compare from, one point in time to a next, right? Because there are slightly different topics that are being discussed. And then what we've noticed is also that sometimes it's more an update, there is an update on something, but that it is good, it's nice to have. It's it's information that might be helpful. It might give but is not something that is actionable, that board members can actually, do something with it really at this point in time. So I think here is a lot to be kind of looked at as well. And it was quite astounding that just this picture of, the different topics that are being discussed, and it is honestly is not one has the same topics in it as the other. So it's really, really diverse. No standardization at all. And it's people do always, I always think people try to do their best, and they are doing
Absolutely.
their best, right? And probably many organizations, they have themselves set up a standard. They have their board reporting calendar, and they bring the different topics at different points in time, and maybe the directors are used to that, right? But I also think it seldomly gets challenged, right? Both on the aggregation level, or at the need for sometimes a bit more distinguished in information, right? And also the structure of the reporting.
And I think it's also super difficult for the management team to provide that kind of information, because also they don't have a framework, or they did not have a framework. They are also moving from one company to the other one. They learned that. They do it as maybe also historically grown over time. But they are just putting together additional needs from either executives or from board levels. But it's not, how should I say, it's not a framework, as you said. And I think it's also a good part for all the other ones who would like to listen also to the third part of the discussion. You will really go into the details of a potential framework you see helpful also for the management team, but also for the boards, but
Exactly.
also for the future. I would really like to have a comparable framework, maybe all over industries, but all the other companies.
At least we now have a framework. And I must say, I mean, the teams, I mean, the executive teams, the CISOs, etc., they're doing a tremendous job, right, in providing information to the boards, etc. So there's nothing I would say against that. But as you say, there is no comparison right now. And I think what we strive to do, and I said that in the last episode, we strive to provide a kind of a framework, something that allows boards and management to have a good discussion about what are we talking about, what do we want to talk about. And
Absolutely.
I think this is an important step then in facilitating that warm handshake that we want to achieve.
Yes, and I really think, as you said, they do a tremendous job. They all want to do the best and would like to provide data. It could also be helpful, training or sensitize the management team and CISOs with that kind of framework, because then they can come up and also provide it to the board. And say, okay,
Absolutely.
this would be our suggestion. And I'm pretty sure they would really accept that also on board levels if they get that kind of introduction.
That's what we say, right?
Yeah.
Is our research is being done with board directors, but it's actually is for both parties. It's for board directors as well as for executive teams and cybersecurity leaders. Because if you want to have that warm handshake, it has to be warm from both sides, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think we are all eager to listen to the framework and also understand a little bit better what it means. So I'm looking forward to our third discussion and wish you a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye-bye.
This was another episode of our mini-series, The Human Factor Corporate Integrity Matters, today with Maya Bundt. Here we uncover the leadership strategies that define governance risk and resilience. Guided by the principle, corporate integrity is the foundation of trust, resilience, and long-term success. Thank you for listening. I'm Sonja Stirnimann, your host. Stay aware, act decisively, and lead with integrity. Take care and have a good time.